Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Grab your tissues. Young and Restless is dropping Anvils, that a devastating chapter in Sharon's history is about to repeat itself. At first viewers weren't sure where Sharon's latest storyline was going. Fans began to wonder if they were in for another round of bipolar kleptomania or a revival of the Sharon/Nick/Phyllis love triangle. But as the plot's angle comes into sharper focus, it's clear that we may be headed for a repeat of history, but a much more devastating do-over than we ever imagined. It all started with some off behavior on Sharon's part as she conversed with the likes of Adam and Chelsea in the coffee house. Then it was revealed, through a chat with Nick, that her doctors had changed up her bipolar meds. Sharon began to zone out a lot and seems to have become fixated on memories surrounding Cassie and her death. During an exchange with Daniel, who was the drunk individual Cassie was attempting to drive home from a party when she crashed the car, Sharon again displayed unexpected behavior and flashed back to screaming accusations at the young man after the incident. Before she knew he wasn't the one driving the car. Next, something even stranger caught our attention. The writers penned an unlikely friendship between college-aged Faith and young teen Lucy Romalotti. Sharon's daughter and Daniel's daughter. We took that as a sure sign of where things were headed, but the Anvils kept coming. During Faith and Lucy's first sit-down, the teen asked about college parties and mentioned drinking specifically. Faith explained that she doesn't drink, having been there, done that, and ended up in the hospital receiving Uncle Adam's kidney, after drowning her sorrows during a bout of bullying and wrapping one of the ranch's trucks around a tree. Fast forward to Lucy stopping by Sharon's place looking for Faith and finding herself poring over an album of old photos of Cassie with her friend's mom. While Sharon didn't reveal Daniel's role in Cassie's life-ending car wreck, Heather later alluded to it, and said that it had taken Daniel a long time to get over his guilt, presumably for drinking too much, which led to the tragic circumstances. If Lucy's like any teen we know, it's not gonna end there. As Sharon warned Daniel, she'll dig until she discovers that her father's drinking was the reason Cassie got behind the wheel that night. Considering that Daniel's drinking later in life broke up his family, it's bound to have an impact. This is where we get the chills. If Lucy turns to partying to distract herself from her intense feelings about her father, and Faith runs to the rescue, leading to another car accident, it will be eerily similar to what happened with Daniel and Cassie, especially if one or both girls end up hospitalized and on death's doorstep as a result. But our premonition doesn't stop there. One has to consider the ominous music that was playing at the end of the Friday, July 12 episode. It could hardly be ignored, but it wasn't just playing behind the scenes in Sharon's home, but also accompanied the scenes of Victoria watching her children bond at Crimson Lights. Might we be headed for a multi-family tragedy that not only involves Sharon and Daniel's girls, but also one of Victoria's children? Any way you slice it, Young and Restless is dropping Anvils that doom and gloom, and plenty of tears are ahead. Not to mention a ghastly repeat of history for Sharon, who is already struggling, and Daniel, who has worked so hard to put his past transgressions behind him. To have this type of tragedy touch their families again would be nothing short of devastating. The residents of Genoa City were blissfully unaware of the impending storm. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the Chancellor Park, where children played and couples strolled hand in hand. It was a day like any other, filled with the usual hustle and bustle, but for Sharon Newman, the air felt heavier, laden with an unspoken dread. Sharon sat at a table outside Crimson Lights, her fingers absently tracing the rim of her coffee cup. The familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of blooming flowers, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her eyes drifted over to the table where she and Ray had shared countless conversations, the echoes of their laughter still lingering in the air. She sighed, the weight of past memories pressing down on her. As she sipped her coffee, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Nick. "Hey Sharon, can we talk? It's important." Her heart skipped a beat. Nick's messages were rarely so urgent. She quickly typed a response, agreeing to meet him at the Newman Ranch. As she made her way there, her mind raced with possibilities. What could be so important? Had something happened to Faith or Noah? Arriving at the ranch, Sharon was greeted by the sight of Nick pacing the living room, his brow furrowed in worry. He looked up as she entered, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and determination. "Nick, what's going on?" Sharon asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Nick took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "Sharon, I didn't want to alarm you, but there's something you need to know. It's about Cameron Kirsten." The name sent a chill down Sharon's spine. Cameron Kirsten, the man who had terrorized her years ago, the man who had turned her life into a living nightmare. She thought she had left that chapter behind, but now it seemed like a ghost from her past was re-emerging. "What about him?" Sharon asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's back," Nick said, his eyes locking onto hers. "And he's been asking about you." Sharon felt the room spin. The memories of Cameron's torment flooded back, the fear and helplessness she had felt. She had fought so hard to reclaim her life, to build something stable and secure, and now it felt like it was all slipping away. Why now? Why would he come back now? Sharon's voice trembled. "I don't know. But we need to be prepared. We need to make sure you're safe," Nick said, his tone firm and protective. Sharon nodded, her mind reeling. She knew Nick was right. She couldn't let Cameron destroy her life again. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for her children, for Ray, for everyone she loved. As days passed, Sharon couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She would catch glimpses of the shadowy figure in her peripheral vision, hear the faintest whispers that made her skin crawl. She knew it was Cameron, playing his sick games, trying to break her down. One evening, as she was closing up Crimson Lights, she heard a noise coming from the back alley. Her heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously approached the door. She opened it slowly, peering into the darkness. "Hello, Sharon." A familiar, chilling voice greeted her. Cameron stepped out of the shadows, a sinister smile on his face. Sharon's breath caught in her throat as she took a step back, her mind racing with fear and anger. "What do you want, Cameron?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want what I've always wanted, Sharon." "You," he said, his smile widening. "You thought you could escape me, but you were wrong. You'll never be free of me." Sharon's hands trembled, but she refused to let him see her fear. "I'm not the same person I was back then, Cameron. You can't scare me anymore." Cameron chuckled, a cold, mirthless sound. "We'll see about that, won't we?" Sharon knew she couldn't face him alone. She needed help, and she needed it now. She quickly dialed Nick's number, her fingers shaking as she pressed the call button. "Nick, he's here," she whispered urgently. "Cameron's here. Hang on, Sharon." "I'm on my way," Nick replied, his voice filled with urgency. As she waited for Nick, Cameron stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. "You think Nick can save you? You're wrong, Sharon. No one can save you from me." Sharon stood her ground, her fear giving way to a fierce determination. She had survived Cameron once before, and she would do it again. She wouldn't let him destroy the life she had built, the love she had found. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, Nick burst through the door, his eyes blazing with anger. "Get away from her, Cameron." Cameron smirked, but he didn't move. Ah, the knight in shining armor. How predictable. Nick stepped between Sharon and Cameron, his fists clenched. "Leave now, or I'll make you leave."